So good morning and welcome to Leadership Soundbites. And this episode is episode 9. So, which is so cool. We're not in double digits yet, but we are so stinking close and we're excited about that. So this week, we're going to be talking about the power of recognition. And if you think about recognition, and we were talking about it before we got started here, it's a foundational element to culture. Right. And so if you think about it, don't skip over that foundational element before you jump into strategy or anything else, but take time to, I'm going to say, just put the rebar in, lay the concrete that you need to lay before you start building the house. And so this week, we are super excited to have Trina White. Trina is CEO over the ambulatory surgery centers and the walk-in care clinics. Is that right, Trina?
That's right. Thank you.
For Sutter Health, you're welcome. I have been, I'm going to say blessed, because she's been an awesome element in my life for a while, as probably 5-6 years now, however long you've been with Sutter. And
5.5.
She's an awesome leader, and I look forward to chatting with her today with RokoM and I. So we're super excited. So when I think about recognition, and we talked about being an element, a critical component to the foundation of culture, I also think it's probably one of the most overlooked ways that we can engage with people. And so I want to start us off with this quote that I came across, and I'm glancing over here as I typically do. And someday I'm going to get the freaking stuff right in front of me, so I'm not glancing over. But everyone wants to be appreciated. So if you appreciate someone, don't keep it a secret. And I love that, because how many times have you been in your head to where you're like, oh my God, that is so thoughtful of them, or oh, don't they look great, or whatever it may be. And you basically sit silent and move on. Don't keep it a secret. Share it with somebody else. Share the love. So Trina, I want to kick it off. What's on your mind about recognition?
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the podcast, RokoM and Michelle, and two great leaders I've had the pleasure of working with and continue to stay connected with. And Michelle, I feel the same way. I feel very grateful to know you. Michelle was one of the first people I met when I started at Sutter Health. So that was really cool. And we've continued to have a great relationship since, and just learned a ton from you. So thank you.
Right back at you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I think what you said at the very beginning is really so critical to understand. That idea of having thanks and recognition and celebrating people and their accomplishments and how they're taking care of patients and each other is so important, especially with everything that we've all led through over the last couple of years with the pandemic. Just taking that time to celebrate people, to recognize people, to thank them for everything they're doing is just so important. It really feeds culture. And it feeds all of us. It helps build that reserve back up. And I think when you think about where we are globally, but certainly for those of us who are in healthcare, people's reserves are just kind of exhausted. You hear a lot about burnout. You hear a lot about people just feeling tired. Taking that moment to check in and hear how people are doing, but then to really thank and recognize everything that they're doing. And everything that they've sacrificed so that they can be there taking care of people is just so important. Mm-hmm. It feeds the culture, and it feeds people, and we all need that right now. So what you said at the beginning really resonated.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. RokoM, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to go a little bit to the other side. You know, there's programs that organizations will roll out for focus or for recognition, if you will. And some of the pitfalls have been, you know, they'll say, oh, you need to do so many recognitions, you know, within a week, or, you know, things like that. And one of the things that I've learned over time is that it's the sincerity and it's the specificity of the recognition that matters. So I'd love to get your thoughts on the content of it, right? It's easy to say, oh, you did a good job, but doing a good job isn't really actionable, it's not very sincere. But if you say, thank you for showing up during this difficult time, you've given them some observable behavior that, they can say, oh, if I do this again, I'm demonstrating some value to the organization. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, couldn't agree more, Roko. And it needs to be authentic. And you're right. One of the ways to make sure that it's authentic, and one of the ways to make sure that it really captures people and gives them that boost emotionally, is to be really specific about it. And I think, I think also frequent. I feel like I'm, constantly thanking people for things. And I think to myself, do people get tired of that? And they don't. They don't get tired of it. If anything, we need to make sure that we're doing even more of it, and to just kind of connect that back to what Michelle was saying at the beginning. If it's happening, take that time, make that recognition, say that thank you in the moment that you're in. Because if you say, oh, I'll do it later, or I'll send them a note later, or whatever, it sometimes doesn't happen. You get busy and you go on to something else. So take that time in the moment. I also think any way that you can thank people is, again, back to Roko, what you were saying, sincere, timely, specific. Thank them on a video call, thank them when you're out rounding in person, thank them in the chat box when you're on Zoom, send them a note. And you're right, having that happen frequently, sincerely, is so important.
So the thank you, Trina and Roko too. And the thing that my brain is, anybody that knows me is probably firing in 50 zillion directions. But the thing that came to mind for me is, if you have the opportunity to, is let people know the impact of what they did, that it had on you personally, if it's relevant, because I think that's the other piece of it too, right? Is like, because you did X, Y, and Z, this is how it made me feel. And I think it speaks to the sincerity piece that you were talking about, Roko. And the other that both of you were talking about is, it doesn't have to fit this box. It can be very organic and very ad hoc, or yes, it could be as part of a program or something else. But if we get the feeling that it's required, right, that we've got to hit, it's almost like patient rounds or whatever it may be, then people may tend to shy away from it, because it's a thing they have to do and not something that fills their cup up by doing it. Because it's, as giving recognition, you get something back. And it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, Michelle, that's absolutely right too. And, I think one of the things that comes to mind for me when you're talking about that is this idea of push versus pull. And, creating this culture of thank you and this culture of recognition, it's a pull culture. When you start it and you feed it, then everybody else jumps in and feeds it. And it's organic and it's powerful. And it's not something that you've had to push out like an initiative.
There was, and it reminds me, when you think about, we talked about culture early on, and recognition is some powerful stuff. And we just don't realize how powerful. I had the opportunity to work with a group in surgical services, and we were on this committee that was focused on culture. And so I was helping that group, working with them probably a year and a half, 2 years. And believe it or not, the thing they landed on to start with, and from this toxic culture, was to implement recognition at all levels of that services, right? Peri-op. And so it was from, frontline to docs to frontline docs to each other, across departments, whatever it was. And we watched the simplest things of recognition to where the toxic voices were silenced and the culture changed. Patient sat went up, physician sat went up, employee sat went up. And the observable stuff is those people that were the ones that were controlling it before, which by the way, were the minority, were silenced. And the voice came to the people that really cared about what they were doing and the people they were working with. And it was awesome. So yeah. It's a powerful thing when you talk about culture.
It is powerful. And it's amazing how much focusing on that can shift culture in a really positive direction. And, you know, we've seen that a lot with increasing safety and safety awareness as well. Such a powerful link between thank you and safety. Different teams that I've been a part of, you know, we've initiated things like sending a thank you card when somebody has had a good safety catch. And it's amazing how much difference that makes in the culture, certainly, as we've been talking about, but also in the overall safety that you're creating as a part of the organization.
One other thing, and then Roko, I want to hear from you too, that when you said that, Trina, is I go back to, you have a safety catch, okay? And the thank you note, some recognition can shift the story someone may be telling themselves about that safety catch. For instance, I did a safety catch. Maybe the dialogue in my head is, I'm going to be penalized for it. I'm going to be ostracized. People are going to exclude me and label me XYZ, just fill in the blank. But when you have that thank you and that recognition that said, hey, this is what we're working toward, and thank you for doing this, you've immediately shifted the story that's in that person's head, and you're going to encourage that behavior versus someone maybe backing away from it. And I love that. I love it.
You're absolutely right. It's part of creating psychological safety and creating that space that people feel comfortable and supported stepping into to help us continue to improve.
Yeah, no, I love it. Roko, what's on your mind?
Yeah, so I have one other thing for Trina. So when I first started doing recognition, I was always looking for these big things to recognize. And when I was talking to my coach, she said, why are you looking for the big things? You know, people can be recognized for just the little things. And again, it's about what are you recognizing them for, that behavior or that value that you want to see repeated. So that was a really great tip that I got from my coach. I'm curious, what tip would you give our listeners that might be starting this recognition?
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Well, I think the one you shared is a great tip. You're right. Just even recognizing for somebody, you know, smiling at you when you walk into the room, it can make a pretty big difference in people's day. You know, I think a tip with thank yous and kind of where to start, especially if it's something that you're not sure how to start in, is just start. You know, just start putting yourself out there saying thank you. Again, taking every opportunity that you can to say thank you. Starting huddles and leadership team meetings off with a thank you or a recognition story. You know, I think that's a really great way to start. And even just that one little thing can make such a big difference. And I think of it, you know, to use a term, I think of it like that fire starter. Just starting off meetings and huddles with a thank you kind of starts that fire for people, and then it just starts to spread in a really good way.
It's so funny you're talking. It's like what came to mind, I wrote it down. It's like, be the change that you want to see in the world. So don't wait for someone to start it or wait for some perfect program to launch. Just start. Yep. Right. So be that change you want to see in the world. I love that. Roko, you had a quote earlier that we were talking about.
Yeah, I did. So it's from Maya Angelou, and it's, you know, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And so to me, recognition is just that. It's how you'll make someone feel by recognizing them, if it's sincere and it's specific.
I love it. I love it. So what do we want people to walk away with? What's the one thing? I know there's probably 10, but I want you to pick one that you want people to walk away with. Trina.
Yeah, I think it is back to what we just talked about. Just start it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to wait for anything. This is something that you have the power to start right now or grow right now. So just start.
Okay, I love it. Thank you. Roko.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that sincerity and being specific, and it doesn't have to be big. It can just be the littlest thing, like Trina said, thanks for the smile. It made my day, right?
I love that. So thank you. I agree with all of that. And I'm going to start off with Trina. Thank you. for being with us today. I enjoy every moment that I'm in any room with you, whether it's virtual or not. Roko, I so appreciate the fact that you're the one that said, hey, why don't we? For this podcast series and start having these conversations, because it's something I truly look forward to every week. So thank you for that. And so we get feedback on things that we can do a little bit better, right? So I encourage you to be just a little bit better. You don't have to boil the ocean or solve for world peace. And so in that light, we're trying to get better about promoting and sharing what we're doing here in these conversations every week. So what we ask of you is please like, please share, please subscribe, right? Give us some feedback on topics you want to hear about and want us to talk about and unpack for you every week. And thank you for listening, and have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you.